Sure.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm Erin.
My name is Georgia.
My name's McKenna. How are you doing today?
Doing all right. It's Friday. How can it not be a good day?
To ask you. It just broke up. I just have a
Sorry.
couple questions to ask you about the upcoming season.
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
All right, so our first question is, what changes do you anticipate from last year, and how do you hope to build off of the past season?
So honestly, it's going to be really different this year. We're accustomed to having an entire summer for kids to train and build up and have a pretty decent foundation underneath of them going into the season so that they can handle the rigors and the intensity of the training. And this time around, a lot of kids, because of COVID, just haven't been as active, which makes sense. They haven't been out and about. People initially have been far more worried of being out and exercising and the whole thing, right? So kids are just not in the type of shape that we're accustomed to having them. That's not a slight. It's just the reality of the COVID year. And so a lot of what we're doing this year in terms of training is scaling it back so kids don't get injured. We'd rather have them healthy and happy and just getting the opportunity to race rather than anything else this year. The other thing that's really different is the racing. We're accustomed to having anywhere from 60 to a couple hundred kids on a line. We go to these invitationals where hundreds of kids are racing at one time. And because of COVID, we can't have that. And so kids are going to be forced to run in waves or pods. So they're going to have staggered starts, which is, honestly, it stinks because they're used to racing all at once. They're used to running against the best. And because you have different levels of competition within a race. And so it's really hard to really feel like the kids are going to get the full experience this year. So we're going to, deal with the cards that we've been dealt, make the most of it, really try and focus on building that sense of community and the social aspect of the sport. And if we're able to be as competitive as we've been in years past, great. If not, then I think people are just understanding of the situation that it is this year, and we'll just go on from there.
Okay, yeah, that definitely makes sense how your guys' starting lines are all going to be different. And we were all talking about that, how since you guys all start on the line, how COVID would definitely impact that. And it's just a very interesting thing to look at with your team because it's different than any other sport. So talking about team chemistry, how does your team's chemistry contribute to a successful culture for all your athletes and your coaches?
So we've been really fortunate. The running community is very tight knit. We all we have some you could probably say we have some wiring issues to begin with. I mean, who wants to go out and run as much as we do for as long as we do, as fast as we do? So I think there's a common bond there right off the start. All of the coaches on our staff are runners that have run through high school and college. Some of them are still active to be competitive on the roads today, and we just there's an understanding and a camaraderie that is really easily forged. We're really an easygoing group that is welcoming of the next grade level up, incoming freshmen. You will have seniors that will pull them aside and go for runs with them and work with them on stretching or the workout routines and the habits. And it's just been, whether that's a tribute to the Burke or Fairfax community or what have you, but we've been really fortunate at Robinson to have just a great group of young men and women who just want the best for each other. They rally around each other. And I think we as a coaching staff have been able to assist in fostering that kind of environment. But really it's a testament to the kids. The kids are the ones that are there for one another. We can't make them be that way. They just intrinsically are. And that's a really big advantage that we have in trying to keep student athletes coming to the sport and to recruit them. So we've been really fortunate.
So obviously there's been a long pause in the seasons and obviously the school year. So what's your plan and how do you hope to build off of last season?
So it's admittedly hard. Like we talked about, there's been a gap in the training. Kids haven't been as active as we've normally had it. So some of the kids, fortunately, have trained on their own diligently through the fall, and they've come in a higher level of fitness than others, which is fine, which is great. And others have taken part in winter track, which just wrapped up. The state meet is Monday, and so some of these kids are coming in with some activity underneath, and others are starting from ground zero, and we're going to build them up as best we can in the time we can. But admittedly, this year's emphasis is about safety, because to do too much too soon in our sport usually leads to injuries, shin splints, stress fractures. It's not a good idea to overwhelm the human body if it's not used to it too much too soon. And so this season, admittedly, is more going to be about less competitive endeavors, have them set up for the spring track season. And if we can be competitive, great. But like I said, with the season really only being 5 to 6 weeks, to do too much too soon would be detrimental. We want kids to enjoy their experience, to come back to the sport when the real fall season happens in August and September. And so if we have to kind of take a mulligan this year, we're gonna do that for the greater good down the road.
So earlier you talked about some seniors pulling some underclassmen and going on runs with them. So who are your key senior leaders this year, and what assets do they bring to the team?
Oh, wow. We have a smaller group. Last year, it's crazy. We had almost 30 seniors. Like last year's senior class was really big. We have, I think, 6 returning. I'd have to bring up the roster. I really don't want to leave anybody out because, let me see. So we have Maddie Heinz, we have Alex Preble, Amelia Thompson. Oh man, I need to bring this up because I don't want to leave anybody out. One second, bear with me. Because if they hear this interview and they're like, "Why didn't he say my name?" It's because I'm freezing on the spot, and my Google is not loading. Of course, it's not. Oh, there we go. Boom. I don't want to leave anybody out. There's only 6 of them, so don't want to leave anybody out here. So I said Alex Preble. Reese Thomas. Go to the girls. Said Maddie. Lily Howe. And Monica Seifert. So those are the 6. They are hugely valuable. They've been around the sport forever. So these are kids that ran through middle school, through all of their years, freshmen up, no matter where they've come from, and they have been, like I said, they're just accepting. Everybody is there for the betterment of others. I'm sure, I'm sure they want to be as competitive as they possibly can be, but they recognize that if they have an opportunity to play a role in someone else advancing, they see that and they take advantage of that, and they welcome the opportunity to advance somebody forward because somebody before them has done it for them. Last year's senior class, the seniors before them. So like, it's just been really great in that regard that they see the potential in the young athletes and they want what's best for them, and so they're willing to sacrifice some of their time to make sure that happens. Sorry, that was a long answer. I just want to make sure I got all the senior names because there's not many of them this year, so I want to pay each of them their props.
Fully understand.
Yeah,
Thank you for including everyone.
Yeah, definitely. We did an interview for the fall sports, and the girls basketball coach said the same thing. He was like, I need to make sure I get everyone's name.
So I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry.
No, you good?
I thought I unmuted it, but I accidentally just muted it in general. Anyways, that's fine. So that's my bad. I was just saying how when we did an interview for the fall sports, we kind of touched on all the senior athletes, and the girls basketball coach said the exact same thing, where he was like, I need to make sure I get all the athletes' names in there, and it's hard when there's a lot, and obviously this year it's a bit different with less people coming out to do the sport, but with the seniors, it's definitely very important to give them that recognition. So thank you for making sure you got everyone's names. And then going back to the whole how starting lines are going to look different this year, which you've touched on, could you elaborate on that a little, and also elaborate on the other ways that this COVID time period has affected practices and meets and everything like that?
Yeah, so we are only allowed to have 25 people on a line at a time. So even if it's the Patriot District is 6 teams, like us, Braddock, West Springfield, etc. So what we've been having to do, or what we will have to do, meets are starting next week, is we're essentially going to have to divide our team up into waves and pods, essentially. So like we'll send 8 kids in one heat, and we have to kind of, there's some like gamesmanship, I suppose, where we're going to have to strategize like which kids we want in which heat so that they can maximize running either with competition or chasing competition, if that makes sense. It's kind of like that, like the hounds and the hare, right? So like some kids do better when they're chasing a target. Some kids just don't want to get caught, so they do better up in front. And some kids don't like either, and they just really want to be in like a group of similar ability level. So it's up to us to try and figure out like what kind of athletes we have and how we want to best utilize them, because they're going to be a wave of 25, go. A minute later, the next wave of 25, go, etc., until all the teams have sent their kids out. So there's going to be some gamesmanship between the coaches, especially when we get to postseason, districts and regions and states, trying to figure out, like, do we have a team of chasers? Do we have a team that just that wants to stay in front and try and avoid getting caught at all costs? Like, we have to, there's going to be some strategy involved, but the season's young. Us trying to learn what the athletes prefer at this point is early. So hopefully by mid-April we have a better idea of what we have to work with.
So this is kind of a two-part question. So how do cross-country courses vary, and how are they going to be like different with like, you know, obviously the waves and pods this year? And are there any like particular courses that like you're looking forward to competing at that like Robinson does like particularly well in?
So in the past, we have some, Burke Lake is like the holy grail of Northern Virginia running. So we get to run there a lot. We're very close, and that's where the district and region championships are. So we love that course purely because, you know, when it's time for postseason, a lot's expected. So you have to be really familiar with that course. It's a pretty easy course. It's light, it's rolling, no dominant hill is there. If there are hills, it's like the placement of hills. Like, for instance, if you've never run before or raced, you want to kind of like get in a rhythm, feel like really good about yourself. And when you finally are at that point, like, oh, I can totally do this. This race is going just the way I want it. Then geography kind of punches you in the gut, like an ill-placed hill in mile 2. You're like, no, this shouldn't be here. Like, I should be cruising right now, like I just was. And that's where, like, you know, you really test the character of who you are in racing at that point. So in the past, we've tried to vary it up, find some more challenging courses where kids have really no shot at running a personal best, but they have to endure through those challenges and just accept that. And then we vary it up and we give them some easier courses with less hills, and so like they get really excited, like, oh, I'm gonna go chase this now. So this season the courses honestly are not great. There's some like courses we would never really run on intentionally looking for fast times. So we'll be at like Franconia Park, we'll be at Wakefield, and truthfully the kids don't really enjoy those, but it's where the county's making us go this year. And so we're just going to roll with that. We'll enjoy our time at Burke Lake when we have it, and we'll just kind of make the most of it. But no, like the fun courses, the ones we usually go away for like travel meets, those are off the table this year.
So about your athletes, what are some key traits that you hope for your athletes to exhibit, and what qualities do you look for in your athletes to compete at a high level?
Intrinsically, they have to have that work ethic. I think that's true of any sport. Like kids that recognize that there is a certain amount of dedication that needs to go on when no one's looking, right? Like, that's cliche, but it's totally true that if you don't put in the work, building up the mileage smartly, right, with, you know, consultation from us as a coaching staff, then when it's time to perform, it's just not going to go as well, right? Like, it's the difference between knowing you're prepared and just hoping you're prepared. So kids who know that and understand that that's part of what's expected. The other part is that they're okay with doing the little things, right? Like you could be supremely talented, but if you do not do the little things like warm up and stretching and doing the strength training associated with it, then kids who are less talented, all of a sudden the gap shrinks. So supremely talented athletes can be caught if they're not taking advantage and honing those gifts and skills. So kids that are humble about that and recognize they need to keep working because somebody out there is doing what they're not doing. And then finally, just mentally tough. These racing in general doesn't have to be running. It could be swimming. It could be anything. But anything where you're trying to take yourself to the limit that you've never done before, and knowing how much that's going to hurt to push your body to do something it actually has never done before, you have to own that. You have to accept that this is not going to feel good, and I'm going to endure. And even if I don't get the result I'm looking for, I know that as long as I keep approaching it and pushing for that barrier, at some point I'm going to break through. And then I set myself up for the next barrier. And the elation you feel from that when you finally get what you want, it's just supremely motivating. Like, you cannot help but go after it again. So we need kids to understand that they're not going to get it every time, but by approaching it and going after it every time, eventually you're gonna get it. And when you get it, all the failures that you thought you had to endure through, it's like they were never there. It was like it was totally worth it, because now I'm this much better than what I was.
I really like your outlook on that. I've been a competitive swimmer for several years, and I also ran one half marathon, never again. But it really does take a mental toughness that you really don't notice until it's in the moment and you just realize how hard you are pushing yourself.
Yeah, it's true of multiple sports. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Aaron. You know, I do track and field, and I see you guys competing, and I've competed with a lot of the cross country athletes in like their during meets and things, and that mental toughness definitely, like you were saying, it doesn't have to be like running long distance, to get just any race in general. It's definitely a necessary quality to have, and without it, you can't really push yourself to, compete with the person next to you. So I think that's a very good point to make. And so, speaking more on those qualities, what level of success do you predict for your athletes this year, knowing that those qualities are necessary to really compete, especially in a year like this?
The girls, I'll start with the girls. The girls, we've qualified for the state meet. I think we have like a 4-year streak going right now with the girls. And I don't want to get ahead of myself. The girls are talented enough to go there again. Whether they will, you don't know, right? Like, COVID could sideline an entire team for 2 weeks. You don't have control over it. So the hope is that if everybody's healthy, the girls team as a team can advance. That'd be great. We have Maddie Heinz and Annika Seifert, who were all region last year, and Maddie has had a great indoor track season. Like, she's been all district, she's been all region, like champion level, all district and all region. So the two of them have demonstrated in the past that they can potentially, if not at the very least individually, be all state or in all state contention. So the girls team is pretty good. We have some young talent coming up that I'm very excited to see how they develop. This may not be the exact season because it's so abbreviated to see how it develops, but if they come back in the fall, the real fall, I'm very excited for the girls team moving forward. The guys are a little bit of a rebuild. Admittedly, we have a lot of great kids who work incredibly hard, and I would never take anything away from them. So the sport is all about improvement. So I think we have a really good group of guys who, if they don't get the places that they want at the district and region level, they feel really good about how they've improved as the season has gone on, and they have a foundation to build upon moving forward. If we're looking for a more individual note, we have some really good senior leadership with guys like Alex Preble and Reese Thomas, etc. Alex Preble has crushed it indoors. Alex has been a near state qualifier last year as a junior. He's had a great indoor track season. So everything is indicating, if we're looking for, material success, Alex is probably the one that should and can advance out of the regions and set himself up for an all-state performance.
Well, we just just want really thank you for your time, especially at the start of the season. We know you're extremely busy, so we just want to thank you so much for participating in this. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We're really excited about the season, and I know no one can like physically be there to cheer us on this year because COVID, but yeah, we're glad to have your support.
Thank you so much.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Bye. I like to sign off now, right? Is that